It's Marvel Snap Season Rollover Day, which not only rolls over the ranked season, but also brings us a new season pass and a new card. If you are watching this video on Monday, February 6th, that means I'm probably live right at this very moment at twitch.tv/Jeff Hoagland, either playing with some sweet M.O.D.O.K decks or waiting for the season to roll over so we can. So consider dropping by. Link in the video description down below. M.O.D.O.K seems like a fantastic design and a perfect season pass card. It gives us some fantastic things to deck build around, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be quite as overbearing as previous season pass iterations, Silver Surfer and Zabu, which we're currently waiting for nerfs on. At any rate, M.O.D.O.K, if you're not familiar, is a 5 energy, 8 power card that on reveal discards our hand. I'm excited to jump into exploring with all of the deck lists and others that I'm listing here today to see where this card ends up at. Hopefully it is another competitive and reasonable thing to be doing in Marvel Snap's metagame. Let's go ahead and jump on into some fantastic deck ideas that I can't wait to play later tonight. One of the things M.O.D.O.K enables that I'm looking forward to seeing if it can be brought back into the metagame by this new card is Strong Guy. Strong Guy is a 4 energy, 4 power card with the ongoing effect if you have no cards in your hand, Strong Guy gets +6 stats. 10 points of power for 4 resources is above rate, and M.O.D.O.K being 8 points of power for 5 resources is pretty close to on rate, so getting 18 power between these two combined seems very reasonable. Swarm, another card in this deck list that gets enabled by M.O.D.O.K, says when this is discarded, create 2 copies in your hand that cost 0. So if you're getting 0 cost 3 power things on top of enabling Strong Guy, I think a deck like this has a lot of potential. We're basically just playing a bunch of good on-rate cards while also having some disruptive elements, armor, Cosmo, things like Iceman and Scorpion, etc. You'll note that this deck is playing America Chavez at the top end of our curve. Not only will this allow us to have Strong Guy into M.O.D.O.K on curve more successfully, but it also means that when we M.O.D.O.K on 5, we'll have a guaranteed big play on 6 alongside whatever swarms we have to deploy as well. Our next deck list is a take on Strong Guy M.O.D.O.K that is looking to kind of marry the discard and destroy archetypes together on the back of Wolverine, a synergy card that works with both of them. Wolverine now says whenever Wolverine is discarded or destroyed, it gets +2 stats and is returned to the board at a random location. What this deck is essentially looking to do past enabling Strong Guy is if we M.O.D.O.K on 5, we can swarm the board with Wolverines and literal swarms on turn 6, along with Killmonger to be able to blow up a Nova and be able to give our board an incredible boost. We also have Arrow at the very top end as a little bit of interaction should we get ahead on board early, like a deck like this can do in a lot of situations. For our next look at a M.O.D.O.K archetype, I'm hoping that this card can perhaps revive an old favorite from the closed beta, and that is Discard Collector. So Collector gets +1 stat whenever a card is added to your hand from anywhere other than your deck, and this works quite well with not only Swarm, like we looked at a moment ago, but also with Apocalypse. 6 energy, 8 power. When it gets discarded, it gets returned to your hand with +4 stats, and we have Helicarrier here as well, which when it's discarded, it adds 3 random cards to your hand. This means anytime we're discarding Swarm, Apocalypse, or Helicarrier, we're making our Morbius and Collector more powerful. Nakia also works really well with our Swarm engine. She gives the 2 leftmost cards in our hand +2 stats, meaning if we get to Nakia a Swarm, when we discard those Swarms, we'll get free 5 power things to be deploying back to the board. Because we're playing cards that return to our hand when they discard, you'll also notice that we're looking to leverage Wong in this deck, because in theory, we could go Wong on 4, M.O.D.O.K on 5, and then generate a ton of swarms, as well as give Apocalypse +6 stats. And if we discard Helicarrier and then discard the 3 things it generated, Morbius will just get absolutely huge. This deck is also looking to leverage Dracula as another way to pay off with our Apocalypse. Dracula discarding a card at random from our hand at the end of the game, and M.O.D.O.K being a great way to clean our hand out to ensure that Apocalypse will be the only thing that Dracula is discarding, giving it an incredible amount of precision when it comes to discarding that big card from our hand to gain a large stat line for its 4 resources. This next archetype, Lockjaw Discard, was my favorite discard deck in a pre-M.O.D.O.K world, and M.O.D.O.K seems like a reasonable upgrade to it. Some parallels to the discard collector deck that we looked at a moment ago. We're looking to leverage Swarm and Apocalypse along with Dracula to leverage that big Apocalypse, but instead of using something like Wong to double up our discards, Lockjaw will take any card that we play to its path, get its on reveal effect, and then tuck it into our deck, grabbing something else back out, and letting us redeploy that thing that we played to Lockjaw later should we draw it again. M.O.D.O.K really solves the kind of issue that Dracula has in this shell, where sometimes you get to the end of the game and you have Apocalypse plus other cards in your hand, and there's kind of a percentage play as opposed to a certainty of what your Dracula is going to bin for you. There is a chance that with the addition of M.O.D.O.K to this archetype, we should also consider Collector in this shell as well, similar to the list before. I think there's going to be a lot of things to test and tune around those details as we try and figure out exactly what an optimal M.O.D.O.K shell looks like alongside Apocalypse and Dracula especially. The final archetype that M.O.D.O.K looks to potentially be an enabler for is certainly Hela. Hela, for those not familiar, 6 energy, 6 power, with the on reveal, resurrect all cards you discarded from your hand to random locations. Now, the trick here is M.O.D.O.K will obviously discard your Hela along with the rest of the cards in your hand, so we need to figure out a way to get around that. Enter Invisible Woman. Invisible Woman makes it so nothing flips up in her path until the very end of the game. So if we deploy Invisible Woman and then in her path we play M.O.D.O.K followed by Hela, at the end of the game, M.O.D.O.K will flip up first, discard the entirety of her hand, and then Hela will bring everything back into play that was discarded moments ago. Obviously, you could also play M.O.D.O.K out when you don't have Hela in your hand, but then you need to make sure you're drawing Hela on the exact last turn of the game, which is pretty far from a guarantee. This core is kind of the traditional Hela list that has existed in Marvel Snap for a little while. I think this archetype's always been a ton of fun, but it's been a good bit inconsistent. It often tends to fall short when it doesn't draw its namesake, and I'm interested to see if M.O.D.O.K can make the games where you do draw Hela a little bit more powerful to make up for the inconsistency of the deck kind of flailing around when Hela is nowhere to be found. Our last deck today is a bit of a different take on the Hela archetype that looks to kind of solve the problem of what do we do when we don't draw Hela, and in this case the answer is let's play our cards ahead of curve with extra energy from Electro or with Wave, making them cheaper. One kind of novel thing this deck does as well is we can play Invisible Woman on 2, Electro on 3, M.O.D.O.K under Invisible Woman on 4, Hela under Invisible Woman on 5, and then on turn 6, we can play Magneto, pulling Cosmo off of the Invisible Woman path that would be shutting down our M.O.D.O.K and our Hela. I think when this season starts, a lot of people are going to be very painfully aware of what to expect flipping out under the Invisible Woman as people are looking to test M.O.D.O.K, and being able to sidestep the most commonly played hate card to on reveals under Invisible Woman with Magneto pulling Cosmo seems like it's a potentially powerful thing to be exploring, and Magneto just doubles as this strong 6 energy thing that we can be cheating into play off of Hela, even in the games where that's not something we need to be doing, moving their Cosmo around. If you want to see some of these decks in action, be sure to drop by my live stream today, twitch.tv/Jeff Hoagland, or check back in here on the YouTube channel tomorrow morning, where we'll have a highlight of whatever was the best performing M.O.D.O.K deck that we played on the very first evening. If you have any excellent ideas that I didn't cover in this video, be sure to leave them in a comment down below for my consideration. And as always, if you enjoyed any of my ramblings, be sure to snap that like button, help this content reach more people, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I post updates like this 7 days a week on everything related to Marvel Snap, and I'd love to see you back again. Happy snapping and happy season rollover day, folks.